Jim Zogby, and I'm here with some special guests as part of our continuing Hearing Voices from Lebanon programming. As you know, we've been concerned about the fact that Lebanon and its people are getting short shrift in this conversation. A lot of focus on Iran. Thank God there's focus on Gaza, although less so now than there was and less than there should be, given the fact that the genocide is continuing. Um, as is usually the case, what Israel does is they objectify their opponent so that their opponent is not seen as a full participant, in their full humanity. So they're hitting Hezbollah targets. What they're hitting is civilians. They're hitting villages. They're hitting um, and destroying whole areas of the South. And I want to talk about that today. And we've got with us Youssef Elzein, who is from Dayton, Ohio, a member of the board of the Arab Social Association there, and a member of the board of the Dayton Peace Council or Peace Center. Anyway, I was there. It's a marvelous group, and they do great work. Um, and Zeina Mohammed, who is Mohanna, rather, who's from the group Amel. And I know the work of Amel because back in 1983, when we started Save Lebanon to bring wounded children over for medical treatment here in the States, Amel was our partner and helped select the kids and prepare them and actually accompany them to the States. So I'm thankful to have both of them. I want to start with a couple of intros. First is some polling that we did. We did some polling on Lebanon, and I want to just show you what we find. Um, do you believe the United States should take more steps to pressure Israel um, uh, to stop the bombing and leave South Lebanon? 2-1. People say yes, which is great. It needs to be built on. Um, and then, secondly, we asked the question, do you believe Israel's bombing and occupation of Lebanon are helping or hurting U.S. interests in the Middle East? And again, by almost 2-1, hurting. And the numbers of Democrats obviously are higher than Republicans. But the point is that despite the fact that it's not getting the coverage it needs, there still is a reservoir of goodwill toward Lebanon, a much greater reservoir of goodwill toward Lebanon than there is toward Israel. Um, but politicians need to be held accountable for the fact that they're doing nothing to stop what Israel is doing. And so I want to now turn to Youssef and his family. Youssef, you want to introduce what we're about to see, the video. Oh, no, first I have some pictures from the New York Times. I want you to see these because this is kind of a good segue into where we're going. The New York Times did an extraordinary treatment of 12 Lebanese villages before and after. This is Bint Jbeil. Before on the right, you can see the homes and you see the destruction. These are satellite photos the New York Times had, completely destroyed. Um, Home of a lot of folks from Dearborn, Michigan, completely destroyed. This is Khiam, and uh, again, completely destroyed. And this is Atarun, again, completely destroyed. And we're going to put um, the picture, the link to the New York Times photos. You can see all 12. Zeina, and she'll talk in a moment, told us today that the number was 61 villages, 61 villages,
81.
81
81.
villages
Mm.
in the south, completely leveled. They're doing to South Lebanon what they did to Gaza. It's barbaric, it's inhumane, but they're getting away with it. I want to turn now to Youssef to tell us the story of his family's home and of the video that we're about to see. Youssef, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Zogby, for hosting this. It's important for many people other than myself and my family to tell their story. I live in Dayton, Ohio, so I am surviving the tragic events of most of the people that have been forcefully displaced from the south of the country. And for a change, maybe the forced displacement had a blessing that the latest destruction of our home in Kfar Rhouman and many others had no casualties. So we're really blessed to that fact. But 2 weeks ago, my brother and others went back to Kfar Rhouman during the ceasefire was announced, and they cleaned the destruction that took place even then. And here it is now. It's a pile of rubble. So my brother, I feel for him, sad, and my family there. It's a house that was built by my parents. My father actually designed the house. He wanted to be a civil engineer, but he didn't have a chance to continue his education. But at least he designed the house, and that was our childhood home. 5 of us that were born and raised in that house. It will not be the first time that our home was targeted during the bombardment of South Lebanon since the 70s. I was living in the house with my sister and my brother at the time. The other two older brothers were away. We actually received a direct hit more than once at our home while we were there, and luckily no casualties then or injuries. But now we feel we're still in shock, and hoping that with Allah's grace, things will get better, and South Lebanon and the entire region will see just and long-lasting peace. And yes, my brother, he would have loved to be present in person, but his interview, I believe it was with An-Nahar, included some English subtitles, and I'm really gracious to you, Mr. Zogby and AAI, for your willingness to show it.
أنا سعد الزين ابن كفر رمان ابن الضيعة الجنوبية. خسرت قطعة مني، يعني كانت صدمة. نحن عنا الدار بكفر رمان، الدار أهل الزين، دار يوسف الزين اللي عمرها فوق 160 سنة. البيت انبنى بأواخر الأربعينات، وأكيد تعرض لسوء الحظ. كلنا بنعرف إنه جنوبنا تعرض لعديد من المعارك والحروب، وعبر الأزمن وعبر التاريخ كان البيت ينقصف، إن كان بالسبعينات إن كان بالثمانينات. ترميمه الأساسي اللي أنا أخذته كان من 2000 وما فوق، اللي نحن بلشنا نرمم فيه. كانت سهولة كفر رمان تزرع بالدخان، والمعمل الأساسي للدخان كان بهيدا البيت تحت البيت. مشان هيك موجودة جورة الدخان بعدها موجودة، وكله حافظت عليهم. تربطني العلاقة بالبيت هي علاقة أرض، علاقة محبة، وعلاقة الأهل بأرضه، بضيعته، بفلاحينا وبمزارعينا، بمثقفينا، بكل شيء. فكان هيدا البيت مفتوح للجميع. بحب جمع أكيد كل شيء مقتنيات تاريخية من عدة إن كان فخاريات، عدة أنواع فخاريات. السلاح اللي أنا حبيت جمعه ولوازم الفلاحين، لأنه جبل عامل، أرض جبل عامل هيك معروفة، كانت كل عمرها هي المقاومة والزراعة. فالحديقة كانت فسحة للجميع، ما كانت بس لإلي ولا لأهل بيتي، كانت موجودة للجميع اللي بحب. في أعراس انعملت فيها، عرس ابن انعمل فيه، العرس القروي. في ناس كانت تعمل عروض أزياء، أما تعمل ندوات أو تعمل نشاطات كشفية. كانت هاي الحديقة مفتوحة كأنه تكون موجودة لخدمة كمان الضيعة. بلحظة ما بتلاقي أثر للبيت وأثر للأشياء اللي هي كانت كتير ثمينة، إن كان معنويا. ما عم نحكي ماديا، المادة بتروح وبترجي، بس المعنوي والنفسي هيدا الصعب. أنا اللي فقدته هلا غير المقتنيات اللي ممكن أنت فيك تجيب المقتنيات، بس الصور، الكتابات، الكتب، الأوراق اللي كانت مكتوبة بخط الأهل، بخط بيي، كل شيء الأرشيف اللي كان موجود أكيد ما رح أقدر طلعه. أي شيء تاني بترجع. والنفس هي الأغلى، هيدا ما عنا شك فيه. بس البيت سترة، والحجر منه حجر إنه هيك بيتعود، لا، لأنه هو ستر لك عيوبك، حكيت أنت وياه، بكيانك، كل شيء كان بيتضمن. فهلا هو رح أفقدهم.
That's before and after. I use the word barbaric. It's well advised. Some will complain, oh, that's insulting to whatever. It's not. What's insulting to humanity is what those two pictures represent and what the 81 villages that are completely destroyed represent and what is happening in Gaza represents and the number of people who've been displaced. That's barbaric, and Israel has to own it. And I think, like I said, well advised to use the term. Youssef, thank you so much. We'll talk later, but I want to go now to Zeina, whose organization has done such extraordinary work for decades in Lebanon. Like I said, they were our partner in bringing children over for medical treatment. And I want to thank you, Zeina, for joining us and tell us, please, about the work that Amel is doing.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Liam and Youssef. Thanks everybody for attending here and for your trust in Amel. You know that Lebanon today has been facing a protracted crisis. We are in the seventh year of continuous emergencies. They say, as a humanitarian, if you make it in Lebanon, you really make it everywhere. We faced all type of crises since the past 7 years: monetary crisis, political crisis, explosion that is the biggest after Hiroshima, Nagasaki, socioeconomic crisis, two wars, existing Syrian crisis with displacement, which is counting for the highest refugee per capita in the world. And now an IDP crisis with more than a quarter of the population that is internally displaced. So definitely all the humanitarian workers, all the frontliners are quite very tired and
Can I just ask something? Stop you.
sure.
There were over 1 million Syrian refugees in Lebanon, uh, and now over 1 million internally displaced. Where are the internally? I mean, it boggles the mind that a country that small with a native population so small can ingest that. We'll talk more about that later, but I just wanted to get the numbers out so people got a sense of the magnitude of this. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Lebanese population is nearly 4 million. We already have 1.5 million Syrian refugees, and existing to a quarter of a million of migrant workers coming from Africa and Southeast Asia, and another quarter of Palestinian refugees. So Lebanon really has showed a very strong model of solidarity, humanitarian solidarity. But in the time of donor fatigue and the toll of continuous crises, really Lebanon is in need. And now with the international economic struggle, Lebanon is really sinking in vulnerability. We are at a verge where we're discussing if the monetary crisis might lose another value, which is going to be really very gross, in a time where everybody's suffering and vulnerability is very high. So, a study showed that 4.1 million people in Lebanon are in need, according to the Arab Center of Research and Policy Studies, which is a very high number. So 70% of the population in Lebanon are in need. Today we are at day 73 since the start of the second escalation. So there is the one that started in September 2024 and now another one, which is within a regional context where it ended up by having 1.3 million internally displaced population. And definitely this includes Lebanese as much as it includes also refugees and migrants. So definitely everybody's affected. 1.3 million displaced. The martyrs are 2,883, with the total injured civilians 8,787. The Minister of Public Health was saying that the people who lost their lives are 1/3 of the total injuries, which is a very high percentage. So, which says that although the hospitals and the healthcare body is trying to address the urgent needs, but this indicator is showing that the capacity is not there to save lives. So the toll of life is really high. The hostilities are 14,000 today. We're talking just in the past 73 days. We're not counting the numbers since the first escalation in September 2024. We're with more than 50,000 housing units damaged and destroyed. This number is not quite very easy. Some other numbers are talking about more than 160,000, sorry. And as we just heard yesterday, that we were talking about an invasion of 55 villages, but apparently up until yesterday, we have an herbicide of and domicide of 81 villages. So the plan is to really demolish the borders, the southern borders, by having 20 kilometers that are totally demolished, which is huge. And I think Dr. Youssef already shared the toll of impact, but also, unfortunately, there is really a huge toll of loss of lives and civilians attacked. And also, we were talking yesterday in a round table that there is a very high rise in women head of household, which is also stressing a lot of impact on women. I'm sure you heard about the massacre that happened on April 8th in just 10 minutes. 100 strikes were thrown all over Lebanon from the north to the south, and just in 10 minutes, more than 357 people were injured and more than 1,200 people lost their lives. We were talking about food security for 3 months, medication enough for 3.5 months. But with this, Lebanon is really getting depleted in terms of shortage. But also, if this stays long, really, Lebanon will be in a very, very difficult situation and scenario. We are also faced with water and sanitation challenge, irrigation infrastructure sustained damages, and approximately quantified to 356 million. The Arab Center estimated that the damages between the first and the second escalation between 24 and 26 is almost equal to $20 billion of damages up until today, which is really a very huge number that is there. And we're talking about the Gazification of Lebanon. So the same tools that have been used in Gaza by targeting the press, the ambulances, healthcare providers, civil defense. Unfortunately, 2 days ago also, we lost one member of our family, of our colleagues, an Amel, who is a part-timer with us and part-timer with the National Civil Defense, and targeting civil defense and healthcare providers is really very atrocious because this reduces the capacity of responding to the attacks on the civilians. Violations are there for violation on international law and forced civilian displacement. So when we're talking about 1.3 million, we're seeing a mechanism of ethnic cleansing. We're seeing a mechanism of forced displacement. And unfortunately, today we should be in our third week of a ceasefire. Everybody's calling it the so-called ceasefire. And this so-called ceasefire, there were today 380,000 martyr and more than 1,120 people wounded. So the ceasefire is respected only from one side at the beginning, and then it's not a ceasefire anymore, and the clashes are continuing from both sides. So the violations also are extending to the use of prohibited material that are being very clear, that are being shown, where we are seeing the use of the white phosphorus. Some studies done by the Ministry of Agriculture also showed that in the previous war there were a use of, and it was proven by scientific evidence, depleted uranium, and explosives and other harmful destruction. And as you see, the herbicide, the domicide, but also the ecocide, which is even worse than a genocide because the ecocide stays for years and leads to a lot of abnormal deliveries and stays for long term for the people working in the agriculture to lose their life. And just here, it's a photo. I'm not like where there is the arrow. This is a health center that we have in Khiam that was destroyed for the second time. And ourselves also, our family home in 2024 was destroyed for the third time in history by Israel, our grandparents' home that we rebuilt and that was destroyed for the third time again. So, but now we're talking about recuperating the land because more than 10% of the Lebanese territory are illegally and unlawfully occupied by Israelis, and they have plans to sell the land, the real estate, and have settlements instead. The same scenario that they're doing for Palestine. Violations of international law by attacking journalists. At least 27 journalists have been killed in this escalation. If we're counting since 2024, more than 1,039 persons from the press have been attacked, and this is to also close the voices of reality and the objective coverage of what is happening, which is another violation to international law. And a third violation is targeting the peacekeeping mission, the UNIFIL, the United Nations forces, the peacekeeping that are on the borders of Lebanon, and also that are being targeted. Somebody from the French battalion lost their lives, and definitely those are infringement to international law. Other infringement are targeting the Red Cross, the civil defense, and targeting ambulances and paramedics. Today, 108 emergency medical service workers and volunteers have lost their lives. On the life of damages in Amel, during 2024 escalation, 14 of our centers were partially or fully affected through collateral damage. Up until today, 4 of our centers have been damaged, being partially or completely the one in Khiam. And the rehabilitation costs are really huge. And those are centers for the people. And as you know, Amel is a non-sectarian organization that makes sure to stay next to the people without discrimination. 90% of the 1.3 million displaced are outside shelters. 660 collective shelters have been opened, which are schools that were open to accommodate people, but those only accommodate 15% of the total displaced. The 85 to 90% are in private homes, where we know that some 8 families, in some cases, are staying in one flat. Sometimes 3 families are staying in one room, which is really very difficult, and this creates problems and mental health issues and shakes the safety nets. But also, unfortunately, there are around 1,600 people who are living in tents, which is very harmful and destructive. As part of our health work, Lebanon did not receive 20% of the needs, which is really a huge number. But also, we are seeing through our health consultation a lot of respiratory problems due to the indecent conditions of living. Scabies and lice already spread in these collective shelters, in addition to major water and sanitation problems that are causing skin issue, distress in acute conditions, and children suffering from multiple challenges that are there. And more than 120,000 are being supported by the ministry, but unfortunately, there is shortage of water and other basic assistance. The fact that Lebanon did not receive much funds, and also we are facing certain coordination challenge. We are still not at a stage to be able to address specific needs like person with disability, older people, women head of household, gender-based violence, human trafficking, and other specific protection issues. Amel support, is a non-sectarian organization here next to all the people, where we're trying to show the model of citizenship in Lebanon despite political disparity. We believe that there should be organizations that are there to be next to the people based on their humanitarian needs, full stop. And today, this is what we're doing by committing to stay next to all the regions. We have targeted more than 214 sites by activating also our mobile modality to be able to reach all the people and IDPs targeted, definitely in coordination with the Ministry of Public Health and the Social Affairs and others, and definitely within the highest humanitarian accountability. Up until today, after the second month, we have reached 101 and 1,001. 581 total people reach, where 64% are female, 37 children, and 1,748 persons with special needs. And you can see the distribution all over Lebanon with what we're supporting. So definitely it includes food and non-food items. So we have distributed more than 40,000 items. and conducted healthcare provision, protection support, but also education through recreational activity and social and emotional learning for children to reduce aggression. We do follow a multi-dimensional and multi-sectoral approach to address things in a global manner. Total items distributed are more than 10,000, reaching more than 11,000, nearly 12,000 people. And we are here and stick to reach people in the hard to reach areas that are on the borders. Despite the difficulty, we really sometimes risk our lives to be able to reach people who are left behind. In the health part, we have our 20 mobile clinics and 8 roving units for supporting older people who are challenged with mobility. Up until today, we provided more than 51,000 health service that include more than 31,000 person with primary healthcare consultation through our PHCC or mobile modality. For protection issue, which is reaching people, more than 20,000 person were supported with general protection, child protection, gender-based violence, and mental health and psychosocial support. And more than 19,000 children reached through recreational and social emotional learning, and 1,348 children supported with retention support, which is supporting them with their agendas to be able to continue their formal education. Ensuring a dignified approach is the basis of what we do. And you can see the breakdown of what we have distributed, being dignity kits, mattresses, food parcels, hygiene kits, family winter kits, diapers, shelter recreational kits, solar lamps, diapers, and assistive devices. And those are some photos for our convoys that were sent to the south despite the risks, but we really wanted to be next to the people who did not receive anything and making sure to close gaps. Focusing on health intervention, you can see the numbers that I previously shared, but just to stress that also we have a midwifery-led model where we ensure a comprehensive approach, we ensure referral where needed, and we try to provide specialized support. And definitely, it's always needed. And really, if you have people who could support, whatever we're doing is not enough. Those are the figures of what a food parcel costs, what hygiene kits, baby diaper, dignity kit, assisted devices, social emotional learning kits, psychosocial support, mattresses, and medical mobile units. That would be a great asset for us to continue our operation and to sustain our support. And those are our QR codes for the multiple pathway of support. Amel appeal is available here, but also I think in the US and worldwide, the GoFundMe is the best approach. This GoFundMe, we opened it since 2020, since the COVID, but we're keeping it open for the credibility it has that we already received, but also we do have the 501c3 that allows us also to receive the taxation channels. And I will include also my email here if you need to discuss any partnership that we're happy to really to support.
Issue of, we get into this, who started it, whatever, and people forget that Israel occupied South Lebanon for over 20 years, that this is not the first time, that that what almost defines hostilities is when we get into this kind of massive retaliation. They call it retaliation, but actually the chicken and the egg, the cycle begins way before any particular action. Begins with refugees from Palestine being shot when they try to return, etc. Is there an appreciation, Youssef, from your experience here in the States? Do you think that your fellow colleagues, like at the Dayton peace, do they get the fact that Lebanon's a victim in this, or do they buy the Israeli argument that Hezbollah started it, and that it's that what they're targeting, despite the evidence that they're targeting homes, they're targeting families, they're targeting health institutions, etc., that it's not targeting Hezbollah, it's targeting real people?
And this is a great question since I deal with it almost daily. And the first question I'm asked, do you believe if Israel has the right to exist? So they completely divert the question to a right to exist question rather than trying to give the attention to the inhumane practices that is taking place now. But since 2023, October 7th, like you're finding the humans that we deal with them here that have hearts are really, the tide is turning, and they're believing that victimizing civilians for the premises of security and safety for the northern border of Palestine, that's not going to be an excuse. And the fact that now many people are not silent about this tragic events is helping to continue the display, the display of the hegemony of the practices. The Peace Museum, it's funny that just before the tragedy in our home, at our home, we were working on a peace summit to promote some sort of a peace summit in Dayton, Ohio. We will not stop working on it. We will continue this effort through a number of organizations here in Dayton, including City of Dayton. I hope that this become a reality in the next few months. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for our folks out there, the reason why it's the Dayton Peace Museum is because that's where the Dayton Peace Accords were negotiated and signed, ending the war in Bosnia, and the Kosovo settlement as well. So that it's a vibrant center. I loved it when I was there, and thank you, Youssef. Zeina, the challenges ahead. I'm getting some questions here about what is wish money and yeah, tell us a little about because I want to send you some money, but I want to know what's the best way to do it.
Thank you so much for your solidarity. The wish money is something internal for people living in Lebanon. It's just a phone number where people can easily support. I think the best pathway is the GoFundMe for people residing in the US, but also the PayPal and the account in France are for Europe, people staying in Europe. So I think we try to make multiple pathways easiest way to really support
Mhm.
Lebanon, but really every single support is primordial to address the major needs that are there for humanity. So thanks a lot. So you were asking me about hostilities. Hostilities are the number of strikes thrown, being it targeting people who died or not. But that's counted as a hostility. But unfortunately, all the strikes, as we are seeing, are using very high technology, and they are targeting the people that they would like in very surgically. So if there's a building that has 7 floors and they are targeting somebody in the third floor, you can see that the third floor is totally demolished and the building is still standing. So they're using
Mhm.
techniques that allow really to reach the target. And this has been ongoing since October 8, 2023, one day after Gaza. So, and Lebanon has been one stand to also provide solidarity to Gaza in opening this front. And this is where we are being faced with these challenges.
Tarek has a question that I think I've seen the New York Times slides, and I suggest those of you listening in to go to the link for that New York Times. It's like I said, they're showing 12 of the villages and their satellite photos. It looks really devastating. But the question Tarek asks is, are there still any people living in Khiam and Bint Jbeil and Nabatea? And if so, what percentage are left? And if so, how are supplies getting to them? Are they emptied out and demolished, or is anyone still there? What do you know of that, Zaina?
No, nobody's staying there. They are forcibly evacuated. Khiam is, as we're seeing and hearing from the satellite photos, nobody can access. It's already occupied and invaded. So that's not, so there are IDF that are already in these lands, which is definitely an unlawful occupation. Nobody's there, but we are hearing on a daily basis a huge bombardment to all the households. So it's exactly the scenario of Gaza where full villages are demolished. So we're talking about herbicide, which is demolition of. So up until yesterday, they told us that 81 villages are totally destroyed. And also this includes destroying the heritage, targeting churches, all the memory of that is there also is being erased. And that's definitely a major challenge and everybody. So these people, whether they moved to Beirut or they moved to neighboring villages that are still have access, but there is a problem of supporting these people because they are in remote areas and reaching them is risky to send kits and support. So sometimes we ask for humanitarian convoys, but not necessarily all the time it's being respected. Yeah, and I can see the question on the donor community. At the beginning, there was some support, but the fact that Ukraine and Syria and other crises are ongoing, and Lebanon is on the seventh year of crises, unfortunately, there's a donor fatigue, but also there are other priorities. So Lebanon really received very humble support, but also we have seen that also politically, somewhere Lebanon is being punished not to get support, and this is where the civilians are paying the price of all of this dialect because they are the ones that are thinking in vulnerability. And our worry is really if this stays for long, it's going to be very, very challenging. Yani up until today, we can say in the past month, we did not receive any support. We received little support at the beginning. It's almost over. And now we don't know what's going to happen next. So there's really a need to really support the civilians in Lebanon with the toll of impact that is there.
Thank you. Thank you, Zeina. Thank you, Youssef.